So turrets, I've read through this a few times, and there's still some stuff that I'm not overly understanding. Basically, turrets are made out of paper mache now. If you leave a turret alone for too long, even to an early game minion wave, that turret's gonna die. I was backdooring turrets as Renekton with half a minion wave and getting half the turret health down at like 15 minutes while behind. Like, turrets die very, very quickly. But basically, the inner turrets no longer give a shield. I'm glad because that was annoying. It was originally designed for the poke meta to like help defend against poke teams, and then it just ended up being a way that you weren't getting kills because you'd get someone really low and they'd be bleeding out or ignited, and then they would just walk into that turret range and get the shield. Okay. Basic attacks against turrets deal damage equal to base attack damage plus either one bonus attack damage. So that's basically, other than like for champions like Callista, whose basic attack damage scales differently, it's basically the same. You have your base attack damage, and then your auto attack damage goes up by your base plus your bonus attack damage. So you're basically doing the same there, except you gain your base attack damage plus, instead of 0.4, 0.5 ability power to towers. So a lot of people actually didn't even realize that it was a thing. So if you're a magic damage dealer and your base attack damage is like 80 and it's awful, but you have 500 AP, you're still going to be chunking turrets for quite a lot because it takes that AP ratio into account rather than your bonus attack damage. So now if you have 500 AP, it's going to be doing that base attack of 80 plus 250 because it's half of your ability power is going to be applied to the turret damage. So can you imagine a Vygar hitting a turret? Hey, look, it's Vygar. He has 1200 AP. He's hitting turrets for 600. Uh-oh. I don't know. And that's without a Lich Bane. Like, stuff's just going to start getting insane. It's almost going to feel like AP Champion's going to backdoor faster. That's ridiculous. So turret resistances. This is where the big thing comes into. Base armor and magic resistance of turrets has been reduced from 100 to 0. Oh, okay. They just take true damage. Turrets gain 2 armor and magic resistance per minute up to a maximum of 30. From 100, 30, 100, 30, 100. Okay, that's not that much. Outer towers begin scaling at game start. Inner towers begin at 15 minutes, and inhibitor and nexus towers begin at 30. So if you're able to get to that inner tower before 15 minutes, it is not scaling. That thing has 0 armor and 0 magic resistance. So if you kill that first tower early, you're going to kill that second tower early. You're going to kill that third tower early, and then their nexus is going to explode at 12 minutes, and everyone's going to be left going, what the hell just happened? The snowballing for taking towers early, a lot of games would be like, I don't want to take the tower early, I just want to continue winning the lane. Just take that tower, go take other tower. Like, it's ridiculous how much an early lead is just snowballing you now. Turrets gain 200 bonus armor magic resist if no minions are nearby. So 200 instead of 300. They gain 100 less armor and magic resistance. And this is for backdooring. A lot of people didn't realize the reason people didn't just walk to lanes and kill towers when there was no minion wave there is because not having those minions there, the tower was a lot stronger. The minions being in a proximity of the tower actually weakened the tower by a lot and removed a lot of defenses, which made it really hard for someone to just walk up and backdoor a tower, which is why it took forever for teams that just had a tanky character to do it. To tank it. It still took a long time for them to actually kill the tower. So with all of these base armor and magic resist changes, towers actually have a lot more health. Outer towers health went up by 1500, inners went up by 1000, inhibitors went up by 1200, and nexuses went up by 1000. But you got to keep in mind, how does that feel when you are building all health on a frontline character against a team? Hey, you look really tanky, and they might not want to focus you because it looks like it'll take a while to kill you, and then they hit you once and realize he just lost 20% of his health from one attack. Oh yeah, he didn't build any armor. That's kind of how the turrets feel. They look like they're tanky, but they're not at all. And here's the further snowballing thing. Outer tower local gold, so this isn't global, this is for being in range of it when it dies, is up by 70. Another thing that people kind of took for granted and didn't realize was the thing is that if you're in range of the tower gives global gold, but it also gives local gold. If you're in range of when the tower dies, you get 220 gold now, and the inner tower used to be 100, and now it's 250. So now you kill that outer tower and you kill an inner tower, which isn't very hard. Say your top laner gets ganked and you and your jungler push those towers down. That's an extra 470 bonus gold to you and your jungler if you share it, or 470 bonus gold to yourself if you don't. If that top laner is dead for like 20 seconds, keeping in mind how fast these turrets go down, the buffs to a lot of kind of duelist and split pushers like Jax, you're going to see games just spontaneously ending. Split pushing is going to be ridiculously strong if this doesn't get addressed, and I'm assuming it will be. And if it doesn't, the first couple games where games are ending in 18 minutes because someone gets a little bit of a lead in the split push is gonna make you realize, yeah, maybe we should probably be, addressing that. The one change, not one change, all of these changes are kind of the Rift Herald, the snowballing of towers, just everything kind of puts emphasis on actually winning your lane 1v1 and having a gigantic impact because of that, not having to go, all right, I won my lane 1v1, but my bot lane has died 4 times in 8 minutes, so it feels like I'm a lot weaker anyway. I could go teleport bot lane, but their bot lane's really strong and mine's not, so my lane gets a bailout. It feels like, and it feels like fighter and more damage focused, because you're still going to be able to kill towers quickly on someone like a Maokai or a Shen top lane, but it's going to be nothing in comparison to Jax. And what's a Shen going to do if a Jax is pushing against him and he has no way to wave clear the minion wave and the tower's made out of paper and Jax is just sitting there imagining if he had a real weapon while he's killing the tower while Shen's desperately trying to auto attack the minions down. His only out is going to be to hit that taunt, and if he misses the taunt, his tower just dies right in front of him. It's I don't know, it's going to be it's been a lot different lately. So there's a pushing advantage here. We froze the pushing advantage changes below at the last minute. These changes won't be given live 5.22. They'll make their official debut in 5.23. Basically, minions get combat bonuses when your team is ahead. It's a snowball mechanic. If your team gets ahead, your minions get ahead. So it's harder for champion enemies to come back. But anyway, that all of these changes aren't in the game yet. These the pushing changes. I think the gold changes are in, so you're getting more gold early as well. The gold growth stat on minions is lower, so they scale up to about the same, but you're getting an extra 1.5 gold off melee minions, actually an extra 3.2 gold off casters, and an extra, I'm never going to see this, man, I don't get tank minions, but you're getting an extra 8 gold off siege minions. So you're just getting a lot more gold early from both ambient gold and killing minions. But like I said, I'm not going to go over these pushing changes because they're not in this patch yet. That's something I guess I can save till next patch. The jungle is weaker now. To address double jungling and starting a camp, if you double jungle as a top laner or you start a camp as a top laner, you're not going to get level 2. You can start a solo camp. I haven't tried double jungling. I'm sure it's quite similar. But if you do a camp early, you're only going to get 6 minions worth of experience. 6 minions worth of experience is not a level. You need 7 minions to get a level. If you get first blood and you get an assist on it, that's a little bit of experience. Then you're going to be able to do a camp and get level 2 if you get a kill early off of it. But other than that, you're only going to stay level 1, which isn't the end of the world for a lot of people. If you can kill a camp really quickly, like with Hecarim or Olaf, teleport into lane after killing that camp, teleport to wherever the hell you want. Don't teleport to the tower because they took that buff away. Teleport to the middle of the minion wave, which would be like a bronze 6 play before, but now it's actually not that bad because you get to the minions faster. Get 1 minion worth of experience and you're level 2. If you can get there before you lose 6 minions, then you actually don't have that big of a disadvantage because you got that extra gold in. However, keep in mind that you have to set up your buy, because if you start with a flask, you can't buy potions. If you start with like a Doran's Blade or whatnot, it might be okay, but you can't have flask and potions, and there's no such thing as mana pots anymore. So you're probably wanting to start a flask on someone like Olaf, just so you have that extra bit of mana regen. In which case, you also can't buy green wards. You can buy pink wards though for the same price. A lot of weird changes, even if you're trying to go for the old comfort things like double jungler and starting with a camp. So basically, they've the reason you're not getting level 2 off these is they reduce the experience by 10. Only 10. So you're getting 10 less experience, but that's enough to not get you that level. Do they still have experience quints? Maybe that's the secret. Maybe that's the future. But you're getting 10 less. The trade-off here is that the jungle item actually makes you get 15, I think, more experience. So that's why the jungler's still able to get the same amount of experience, actually a little bit more than they would have before. I didn't even know this. Blue Sentinel can no longer critically strike. Did it take 1 like % crit chance rune or something? Like what was the blue buff doing? More gold from a lot of stuff in the jungle. The jungle has magic resist now instead of armor. I'm not entirely sure about these changes. The blue buff now grants its wearer 2 AP per level. So you get 36 AP for having a blue buff at level 18. Okay. Here's another thing that's adding to snowballing of games. Crest of Cinder, the true damage that the red buff gives you that burns the enemies, and it's really annoying and it's really hard to fight against because you slow them and do true damage. Yeah, that applies to turrets now. Everyone's Gangplank. Everyone does true damage to turrets. Hooray! So that's going to make these paper turrets die even faster. Keeping in mind that they have more health, and true damage is only affected by the health, really. So it's not going to be that big of a game-breaking change. It's more about you just doing more damage because they have no armor now. But you still do that extra true damage to turrets. Bunch of other little jungle changes, tweaks, and whatnot going down. Basically, the jungle's just weaker, I think, and gives a little bit more gold in a lot of places. Here's the big change to... Alright. Teleport. Its channel time is 0.5 seconds longer, and it no longer gains a minute off the cooldown for teleporting to a tower. Okay. That's not really the end of the world, because you got to keep in mind, teleport to anywhere is going to be a 300-second cooldown, but there is now a mastery that reduces summoner spell cooldowns by 15%. 15% of 300 seconds is 45 seconds. If you have that mastery, your teleport to regardless of where you go, whether it's a minion, whether it's a tower, don't know why you'd be teleporting to a tower, whether it's a ward, whether it's a Teemo mushroom, wherever the hell you want to teleport to, it's going to be a 4-minute and 15-second cooldown, which is going to be 15 seconds longer than teleporting to a tower. And keep in mind that the tower teleport cooldown was nice when you're teleporting back to lane, but if you're teleporting for a gank, I mean, unless the enemy is nice enough to be turret diving you in a dumb location or making it so that a tower teleport is the best option, you more than likely were teleporting to a ward that your teammate dropped or a minion close to the fight. You weren't getting that bonus reduction anyway for most of the teleports after the ones you went to lane. Furthermore, if you don't take that mastery, that gives you the 15%, you can still take Ionian boots, the cooldown boots, because they now give you 10% off your summoners. So that takes your teleport cooldown down by 30. Distortion boots are still a thing as well. And all of these things don't scale additively. You can't get just 25% off with Ionian boots and your masteries. It scales multiplicatively like with tenacity. But if you get distortion boots, you get the masteries, you get the Ionian boots, your teleport's on a lower cooldown than the bonus, and that's not going to just a tower. So a lot of people are saying the teleport meta's gone. I don't think the teleport meta's gone. I think maybe some mid laners might not be taking teleport as much. And I've been experimenting and having fun with not having to take a teleport, but that's not just... in a lot of the games, I wasn't taking teleport because I think that teleport's bad and because I think that Ignite and dueling is a lot better. Although in a lot of situations with how snowball-y I've been explaining games to be now, maybe having that lane advantage is going to be stronger because maybe your job is not to teleport in and to not to look bot lane. Maybe your job is to just win your lane 1v1 because if you're able to get to that second tier tower before 15 minutes, that thing is taking true damage. But by no means was I taking Ignite and stuff over teleport because I think teleport's bad now. I was just taking it because I wanted to have some fun games and try some easygoing stuff after playing like super tryhard and whatnot at the end of the last season. I still think teleport's going to be really, really great, especially for top lane because you still are on the other end of the map than a lot of the action. And just because there's all of those advantages top lane, if you make a good teleport bot lane and get a couple kills out of it, you still get a really big advantage that you're going to be able to come back to your lane with. So they removed clairvoyance and clarity as well. And I feel like right here, I said it on stream when I first saw it. What kind of context is this? This should say the disco is now closed. Because they definitely just nerfed the hell out of Disco Nunu. Anyway here. On to the big heart of gold in the sky. Avarice Braid, Crystalline Flask, Elixir of Ruin, Mana Pot, Poacher's Knife, Trailblazer, Stealth Ward, Sword of the Occult, Brutalizer, Twin Shadows, and Zephyr all being removed from the game. There's a couple of these that you expected to see gone, like Poacher's Knife. I think one person built that. He got reported. His account's now banned, and that was the end of Poacher's Knife. But things like Trailblazer, things like Brutalizer, things like Flask, things like Avarice, and most of all, the Mana Pot. A lot of people didn't see those being removed from the game, and they weren't removed from the game because of not being built or not being used. They were removed from the game because of different balancing changes and directions that they were going. But there's, like, for example, the Brutalizer has 2 items to replace it. There's one that gives you Armor Pen for cheaper and attack damage. There's one that gives you cooldown reduction for cheaper and attack damage, and those build into a lot of the components that the Brutalizer once built into. Because of the removal of Brutalizer, a lot of the paths of items that would have built out of the Brutalizer, and a lot of new items as well, have been emerged because of the items that have replaced the Brutalizer. So overall, removing the Brutalizer, also the fact that it was 1337 was pretty fun for a build, for like just the symbolism of the number, but building stuff and looking at like, all right, I need 1337 gold before I go back was just a triggering number to get. Rounded numbers are a lot easier to work with. It made a lot of build paths and costs really weird. But for example, from here you can see the Brutalizer and the Avarice are gone, but there's still a Ghost Blade, and it's a lot. I feel like on almost every champion that it seems like it'd be a good idea on, it's a lot better of a feeling to buy and to build, and there's a couple ways to go into it that's not just build the Brutalizer, because the Avarice you probably don't want early in a lot of situations, and then suck it up, get the Avarice until you get the Ghost Blade, then have the crit on it. They are able to do a lot of interesting things by removing certain things and making the better build paths. Alright, the BF Sword now gives 40 AD rather than 50, but it's 1300 gold, so bot lane, when you got behind, you really felt like you got behind because you wouldn't want to be building anything that wasn't a BF Sword early on BF Sword champions. Getting the pickaxe early kind of felt like either you got a really early pickaxe and that was a big advantage anyway, or you're like, I need to wait out this BF Sword and I'm behind, and I'm going to be even more behind because I'm sitting on 100 or 1,200 gold in lane, and I'm having a hard time farming because they're denying me, and I can't go in and farm anyway or have any fighting chance because I have no damage, but I can't buy damage because I have to wait out for the BF Sword and the bank denied me for the loan. But now it's 250 gold cheaper. It's less attack damage, obviously, but it's cheaper, so it's easier to get into your build paths. Things feel a lot smoother to build, both with their combinations and both with their costs with a lot of these changes. Cloak of Agility has gone up. I don't know why it was 730, but it was. Now it's 800, which is a nice round number. 20% critical strike chance from that. A lot of... I think all crit in the game scales by 10% now, other than runes, if I'm not mistaken. Because Cloak is 20, Zeal is 20, Brawler's Glove is 10. So pretty much. Infinity Edge, BF Sword, Pickaxe, Cloak of Agility, like same build path. It's 65 less damage. Costs a little less damage, still gives you the crit and whatnot. So for all of these item changes and whatnot, I'll go over the ones that I think are important or the ones that I think that got changed, but once again, use it as a textbook, go back and check stuff, or you might not even need to. All of this stuff just shows up in the shop, so as you're playing through it, you'll get the feel for it anyway. Here is probably the biggest change as far as AD itemization. The Essence Reaver, no longer the laughing stock of the AD community, no longer the I don't like my team, so I'm building an Essence Reaver to passively troll them. No longer the, hey, maybe it'll work on this Chow, maybe it didn't actually work out. Essence Reaver is actually just a super awesomely good item. I'm expecting it to get nerfed because it's a stat stick, but it's a good stat stick. It just has stats flowing out of every orifice. Builds out of a BF sword, cauliflower's warhammer, and cloak of agility, 400 gold. So yes, Essence Reaver now gives crit chance. It's 20% crit chance. It no longer gives lifesteal. That's okay. You get lifesteal from other items now. Gives you 25% or 20% critical strike chance. That's the same as an Infinity Edge, by the way. It's the same cost as an Infinity Edge. It's the same AD as an Infinity Edge. Basic attacks no longer restore missing mana. However, now critical strikes restore 3% of your maximum mana. So you don't have to be missing mana to be using this effectively. You could have a mana pool of 1,000 and you could be missing 50. You crit, you're still going to heal for 30 mana. Heal 30 mana, regen 30 mana, I guess. It's a heavy hitting AD item that gives CDR. It's not the old Brutalizer. It's not the old Black Cleaver or the current Black Cleaver. It's just a heavy hitting AD item that's just damage on damage that gives CDR. It's 10% CDR, but look at this. 20% additional cooldown reduction equal to your critical strike chance from other sources. It doesn't scale on itself, but 20% additional cooldown reduction. So you get this item, you get 10% CDR, you get 20% crit chance, you get all the other stats. Now your next goal is to go and get as much money as you can as quickly as possible to get 20% critical strike chance. Well, what was that? Cloak of Agility now gives 20%. If you're going Essence Reaver Infinity Edge, you can just go build your Cloak of Agility. That Cloak of Agility is now actually just an 800 gold, 20% critical strike chance, 20% cooldown reduction item. Super value. But the Zeal as well. Zeal is now a 20% crit item. So you build an Essence Reaver and then you build a Zeal, and now you just have 30% critical strike chance. You know what Zeal builds into? It builds into a couple things, but it also builds into a Trinity Force, which itself, the Sheen, now has 10% critical strike chance on it. Or sorry, not 10% critical strikes, 10% cooldown reduction. So you build the Zeal, you build the Sheen, you finish your Trinity Force. The Trinity Force is giving you 20% critical strike chance. This is giving you 20%. You have 40% crit. This is giving you 10% CDR. The additional 20% crit from the Trinity Force or the Zeal component of it giving you additional 20. So you have 30% CDR from Essence Reaver. And then you also have 10% CDR from the Trinity Force. You've built an Essence Reaver and you've built a Trinity Force. Two items that stand alone are very, very, very strong. And together they are now giving you 40% CDR. As well as mana on crit, which you now will do 40% of the time. It is so easy to hit the cooldown cap now that it's absolutely ridiculous. And the one problem with hitting the cooldown cap that a lot of people would run into is mana. If I'm not a manaless champion, I hit the cooldown cap, I am now spamming through my mana pool faster than I can restore it. Oh wait, yeah, I get 3% of my max mana on crit. Never mind, it's fine. I have a feeling that this will be addressed in some way. It feels way too strong. But anyway, let's kind of skip through the rest of this because I went on to the Essence Reaver for a long time. Recurve bow, it's cheaper, does less stuff. The context of this, like we haven't got into the dagger change yet. Daggers used to be 450 gold. Now they're 300. And you got to keep in mind with minions giving more gold, ambient gold being more as well, you're also not able to buy mana pots. You're not able to buy potions if you've already bought a flask, and you're not able to buy green wards, and you can only have one pink ward down at a time. So you can buy the pink ward, but if you already have it down in a good location, you're probably not buying another one. You're spending your gold on consumables and disposables a lot less than you were before, and you're getting more gold. So a lot of these changes here, some items look like they're more expensive and whatnot. Your overall gold income and your gold waste, I think, is going to be a lot more income, a lot less waste, a lot faster build paths, and I think that is also going to contribute to the snowballing of games. But can see the Cutlass here gives 10% lifesteal rather than 8. I think Vamp Scepter just gives you 10% as well. Blade of the Ruined King got nerfed. Its current health damage is now 2% less. It's 6 instead of 8. Here's the Zeal change, like 20% attack speed, 20% crit. Or sorry, from 20 to 15. So it has less attack speed, but it has the 20% crit. Cost a little bit more. It's weird. The Sheen actually cost 150 less than the Zeal, and the Phage is only 50 more. So the Trinity Force components are all relatively close to the same price. Phantom Dancer no longer gives movement speed. Its critical strike chance is 30 because everything is a multiple of 10 for crit now, I think. It's a little bit less attack speed, a little bit less money. No longer ignores unit collision or gives that movement speed initially, but while you're within 500 units of an enemy champion that you can see, you gain 12% movement speed and pass through enemy champions. It almost feels like Phantom Dancer is no longer meant for range champions. 500 units, you're pretty much, with a lot of range champions, putting yourself closer to them than you need to be. But for melee champions, when you're trying to stick to a target, you're gaining 12% movement speed and you can pass through units when you're close to them. So for champions like Tryndamere and stuff, for example, off the top of my head, that are trying to stick to a champion, or just melee champions that are going to be focused on getting crit, this might actually like be really, really strong because it'll let you stick to your champion. It gives you a 7% more movement speed than you got before, and you ignore unit collision. And on top of all of that, it gives you like a really strong duelist passive that dealing attacking champion causes them to deal 12% less damage to you for 10 seconds. It can only be active on one champion at once. You can't debuff everyone, but the target that you're going for is doing 12% less damage to you as well. It's like a mini challenging smite permanently, as long as you keep damaging that person. Runins is less attack speed now, 30% less attack speed, but look, you gain 30% crit chance on a Runins. So it's another optional build for AD carries. Before you would want to be building it on champions that didn't scale directly off of, because you'd be missing out on that crit chance. You'd be wanting to build it on ADs that weren't really focused on crit, like Callista. But now that it gives crit, it gives less attack speed. It gives you movement speed now. They're kind of putting I think the Runins, the Shiv, the other Shiv gun, rapid fire cannon, I think, and possibly the Phantom Dancer, all to be kind of trade-offs of each other. The bolt ratio is cut in half, but the bolts can now crit from the Runins as well, which makes sense because the item itself has crit on it. If it didn't have a way to scale with crit, it wouldn't make too much sense. Here's the new item. The Shard replaces the Avarice on the Shiv build path and some other things. Basically, your energized basic attacks deal 30 bonus magic damage on hit. Yeah, it's like a baby Shiv, they say it in here. It's the energized passive is not unique, so I guess you can kind of build on hit energized build. I don't know if I'd really do that. It's really cheap though. It's 750 gold for 15% attack speed in that energized on hit attack. It also builds into the Shiv here, which you have more lightning targets on your Shiv, deals more damage to minions, so it wave clears a lot harder. Its Shiv magic damage actually scales with level. It's lower early, but it actually scales later into the end game better. Gives you more crit chance, a little bit less attack speed. Rapid fire cannon, new item that basically your energized basic attacks gain 35% range and deal bonus magic damage, so you can kind of hit turrets from out of range, I guess, or snipe people. It gives you crit, it gives you attack speed. It's kind of, like I said, the alternative to a Shiv in some situations. Last Whisper is no longer just the be-all end-all armor pen percentage item. It's actually a component now. It still gives you that armor pen. It's a lot cheaper. It's a component. It doesn't deal total armor pen. It deals bonus armor pen. So it's a little bit less armor pen for it, but it goes into two kind of big dude slaying items. Giant Slayer is another item. You grant up to 10% additional damage against enemies with greater maximum health than you. Has the ratio right there. You can build those into a Giant Slayer and a Last Whisper into a component item. And here's the other one, an Executioner's Calling, gives grievous wounds for 3 seconds on the enemy champion. Keep in mind that grievous wounds only affects their personal healing and not heals on them, so if they have a Soraka and an Italy, they'll still be taking a shit ton of heals, and there's no way to stop that other than deleting that champion from the game. Screw Soraka. Here's what they build into. Lord Dominic's regards and mortal reminder. Last Whisper plus Executioners, Last Whisper plus Giant Slayer. Both of them gain 40% bonus armor pen, so still not total. It's always bonus, but this one does 40% bonus armor pen and 15% increased damage to champions with greater maximum health than you. So that's going to be probably built on almost every AD carry. This will be situationally swapped out for it, I assume, because the passive is unique. You can't get that bonus armor pen twice, and this one affects the grievous wounds for 5 seconds rather than the increased damage against champions. I'm pretty sure that the this one is just going to be better in most situations because the grievous wounds is only going to be affecting their personal healing. So like if you're thinking like, oh, Mundo heals a lot. Yes, but Mundo also has a lot of health and you're going to be able to do 15% increased damage to him. So this is still going to feel better probably most of the time. But it gives you the option if the time comes up that you need to decide which one you want to go for. Yeah, this video is definitely going to be in parts. We're an hour and 22 minutes in. I think my throat's about to start bleeding. Why is this patch so long? Merc Skim is an amazing item now. Builds out of a pickaxe, not a BF sword, so you can get the Quicksilver and you don't have to save up for a BF sword or look like hard to build up to. It also gives you lifesteal, gives you 75 AD, which is more than the Infinity Edge and stuff now. 10% lifesteal, still does the cleanse, still gives you magic resist. Easier build path. Merc Skim's going to be amazing and probably built on every champion now. Bloodthirster costs a little bit less, has 5 less AD. Bit of an easier build path because it has a long sword in the middle of it as well. Still quite a bit of a combination cost because you got to keep in mind the BF sword is more expensive now, or less expensive and less damage.